everybody, welcome to another edition of the Fit and Form podcast, here part of the Awesemo Golf Podcast series, number 2 in the series each and every week, where I go and I break down the course history, the recent form, and the strokes gained, all to find a good course fit and help you make the best decisions for your DFS lineups. So, as I said, this is the second part of the 3-part Awesemo Golf Podcast series. This part will probably run about 10 to 15 minutes. It's normally always the quickest, just because it's just giving information rather than giving any biased stuff. So, before we jump in and learn all about the players that are best suited for this golf course, we're going to thank SuperDraft, our sponsor of all of our audio-video content for the PGA. So the future of daily fantasy sports have arrived. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. You get to say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Sometimes it might not be your fantasy sports knowledge, it might be your emotions, like me, that kind of dictate your own dream team. But it does allow you to have countless lineup possibilities, which let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers contests right now for PGA, NASCAR, MMA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using promo code Awesemo10, and it's $10 free on your first deposit of 10 or more, and 20 total free on your first deposit of 100 or more. New users can look to download this in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits and more winning. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly review here the statistics from last week at Muirfield Village. So there were a bunch of changes added to the course over the last year, and that made it much harder for fairways to be hit. Only 58%, down 12% from the previous year. So in turn, that made the greens tougher to hit at only 63%, and it made scrambling tougher, as more greens were missed at only 52% up and down rate. So definitely playing a lot harder. The cut was under par, but that's likely due to the amount of players playing. 156 were in the field, plus the rough being a little bit shorter than it will be this week. Greens, though, once you're on them, still on the easier side, so it should help some of those bad putters putt a little bit better. Okay. Let's now move on to some of the information found in the articles that I wrote. And of course, if you want access to all of the articles that I write and so much more, get access to all the great Awesemo Plus tools and content for this week's PGA DFS slate with an Awesemo Plus Golf Weekly Pass for only $8.95. This includes full access to Awesemo's leading golfer projections, ownership projections, top golfers tool, which I just made a video with Alex, Awesemo Baker, and so much more. There's never a better time for PGA DFS, so step on the course today. All right, let's start with recent form here. I'm going to go over a couple of stats here. 8 golfers, and this is the recent form that I'm looking at is now only from the Charles Schwab, so 5 weeks ago. 8 golfers with multiple top 10s: Bryson DeChambeau, Justin Thomas, Dan Berger, Webb Simpson, Colin Morikawa, Gary Woodland, and maybe the surprise of the last 5 weeks, Kevin Streelman. In terms of top 25, Victor Hovland has a top 25 in all 5 starts. Lucas Glover, Abraham Ancer, Xander Schauffele, Doc Redman, and Rory Sabatini have at least 3 top 25s in their starts. Now we're going to go on to the made all their cuts, and it's actually a lot of the guys above: Glover, Ancer, Schauffele, Redman, Sabatini, Hovland, Bryson, Berger, Simpson, Morikawa. Actually, not Morikawa. Take that back. So a couple of guys already above, and some guys that I didn't mention already. Rory McIlroy has 3 for 3. Joaquin Niemann also has made all his cuts. Adam Hadwin has as well. And Ian Poulter have made all of their cuts since the restart. On the flip side of that, Kevin Tway, he's 0 for 5. While Jimmy Walker and Nate Lashley are 0 for 4. Ryan Moore and Cameron Smith are 0 for 3. Whereas Sebastian Munoz, Tom Hoge, and Jun Zhang have missed 4 of 5 cuts, so they are looking to turn their tides this week at Muirfield Village, where Kevin Streelman is the only guy to have made all 6 cuts in the last 6 competitions that the PGA Tour has held here at Muirfield Village, which includes, obviously, a last week's Workday Charity Open. Justin Thomas and Patrick Cantlay are the only ones with 3 top 10s. 13 others have 2, including Ricky Fowler, Dustin Johnson, Kevin Kisner, Rory McIlroy, and Tony Finau. I want to add in those guys since they didn't play last week. Whereas Byung Hyun An, Hideki Matsuyama, Xander Schauffele, and Justin Rose have at least 2/3 of their starts finishing in the top 25 here. Whereas on the other side of that, Ernie Els hasn't earned a paycheck here in quite some time. Carlos Ortiz, Cameron Smith, Charles Schwartzel, Jim Furyk, Justin Thomas have all missed 3 cuts here. So Thomas is certainly your feast or famine here, and that's honestly where he kind of is everywhere. He's either in the top 10 or he's missing the cut. Be interesting to see what Justin Thomas we get this week. Vaughn Taylor and Charles Howell have yet to come in the top 25 here at Muirfield. Same goes for Keith Mitchell, Sung Kang, Kevin Tway, and Scott Piercy. All right, so we've flown through those the first 2, the recent form in the course history. Now we're going to turn into the important statistics, the strokes gained. And of course, if this is your first time listening to this or your first time being introduced to strokes gained, it is the metric in which we measure golfers against each other and against the field. There are 7 different categories in which we can measure them. Maybe only a couple of main ones, but definitely 7 once you break it out. First one is total. What I'm looking for in the strokes gained total here is I'm looking for either the percentage of starts that they gain at least 1.5 strokes, or for a criteria for a little bit more upside, look at the total strokes gained over 2. So Rory McIlroy is 12 of 13 before returning to play in gaining at least 1.5 strokes. But since returning, he's only 1 of 3, so it makes his statistics a little bit worse. Now only 12 of 16 for his last 16 starts. Still has the best in terms of percentage. In that regard, still has the best at 77% of his starts, ending with at least 1.5 strokes gained total. Patrick Cantlay, coming up real close to him though, 76% of his starts. Justin Thomas, 65. Webb Simpson, 71. Might have flip-flopped those a little bit, sorry about that. And then the other guys that are above 60% in their starts, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Hideki Matsuyama, and Victor Hovland. When we move on to tee to green, which is just taking out putting, Rory McIlroy is actually beaten by Justin Thomas. So Justin Thomas, I'm looking for tee to green gained at least a stroke and a quarter. So Thomas has done it in 71% of his starts. Rory, Hideki, and Victor are all over 60%. Now, in terms of since we've come back, Sergio Garcia and Harold Varner. Garcia is 3 for 3, and Harold Varner is 3 for 5 in doing this. Abraham Answer, Lucas Glover, Victor Hovland, and Bryson DeChambeau have all done it in all of their starts since returning. So some good golf, certainly from Answer, Glover, Hovland, and DeChambeau. When we move on to ball striking, move this down to either a .75 stroke gain ball striking for their percentage of starts, and for the upside, looking for at least a stroke and a half gained. So on the terms of the 3/4 of a stroke to gain ball striking, Victor Hovland has done it in 100% of his starts in my database that I'm looking at. Crazy. Paul Casey is 75. Justin Thomas is 76. The only 3 guys. Rory McIlroy is the 4th guy here, I believe, that gets above .75 strokes gained. Joel Damon was 3 for 3 in this category before returning last week, but now he's 3 for 4, so no surprise to see him highly owned last week, but could not come through. Bubba Watson has struck the ball beautifully since returning. He's 5 of 5, but has not made every cut. His putting has been terrible. DeChambeau and Glover are 4 for 4, whereas Cam Champ and Abraham Answer are 3 for 3. Now when we switch focus to off the tee, I suspect Bryson DeChambeau, I'm looking for a half a stroke gain off the tee here as a percentage of their starts. And I suspect Bryson DeChambeau, once this is all said and done and we're a year out from now, I'll be talking about him doing it in almost every single start. Right now he's only at 50%, but he's 4 of his last 4 in doing so. Since returning to play, definitely something to keep an eye on there. But Rory is close to 90%, where John Rahm and Cameron Champ are the only other 2 golfers over 70%. Since the return of play, though, Jason Kokrak joins Bryson as the only golfer that have gained at least a half stroke in all 4 of their starts since returning. Matt Wolff and Victor Hovland are 4 out of 5, whereas Scotty Scheffler and Jason Day. Day is 3 out of 5, and Scheffler is 3 out of 4. Now on to the important strokes gained on the approach statistic. Again, I'm looking for at least a half a strokes gained. We've got a bunch of similar names to what we just heard since we went through ball striking, of course. Victor Hovland, Paul Casey, Justin Thomas, Emiliano Grillo, and Colin Morikawa, at least 70% of their starts end up with a half a stroke gain on the approach. Victor is 5 for 5 since the return, whereas Corey Connors, Doc Redman, and Lucas Glover have all done it 4 times. So those 4 guys definitely hitting their irons very well. Now we'll move on to the short game, where in this one I'm looking for at least 0.75 strokes gained. Only Webb Simpson and Denny McCarthy are over 50% in their starts in doing such. Jordan Spieth, Brandt Snedeker, Kevin Na, Maverick McNeely, and Patrick Cantlay have all done it close to over 40% of the time. So not bad there. Last couple of weeks, though, Ian Poulter, Justin Thomas, Brian Stewart, Rory Sabatini, JT Poston, Mark Hubbard, Mackenzie Hughes, and Xander Schauffele have all done it 3 times. So looking for at least 3 strokes, 3/4 of a strokes gained on their short game. So certainly something to keep an eye on there. When we take out putting and we look at just around the green, Byung-Hyun Ahn, Patrick Reed, Tony Finau, Ian Poulter, Jordan Spieth, and Tiger Woods. First time I'm bringing up Tiger Woods here. They are 40% of their starts gaining at least a half a stroke around the green. Whereas in the last 5 weeks, Harman has done it 4 out of 5 times. Siwoo Kim and Sergio Garcia have done it 3 times. So certainly something to keep an eye on here, as the around the green work will be vital to the success of a golfer. All right, in our last category, putting, of course, Jordan Spieth and Denny McCarthy, no surprise. We're going to put those 2 guys every time they play in that category. They're the only ones that have gained at least a half a stroke with their putter in 40% of their starts. Cantlay is not too far behind. However, in the last 5 weeks, we've got some golfers that have done it at least 3 times. Patrick Rodgers, Mark Hubbard, Andrew Putnam, Ian Poulter, Matt Wallace, and Adam Long. So all those guys certainly putting well, and if they can get their other parts of their game going this week, could be in for a good start here at Muirfield Village in the Memorial. So that's going to do it for my Fit in the Form podcast. We're at about 12 minutes here, just over, so nice, short, and sweet. That's how we like to do in this section. And of course, we've got some more in the third and final segment of the Awesemo Golf podcast series, the Against the Grain and Reading the Grain podcast, where I go over specifically ownership for the DraftKings Millionaire Maker, trying to find the best pivots and plays that are going to help you win the $1 million this week. So check that out tomorrow morning. I'm recording this at 9 o'clock on Tuesday morning, so I normally record the Against the Grain, Reading the Grain podcast at the same time on Wednesday morning, so look for it then. Of course, we've got, depending on when you're listening to this, we've got Ben and Tim on the mics this afternoon at 2:30 on Tuesday, and then, of course, Ben, Raz, and I load it all up and bring it all back at 8:30 on Wednesday night for the Live Before Lock show. So until then, be sure to follow us on Twitter. We do a bunch of giveaways there later on in the week, so be sure to check out the pinned tweet. And of course, if you could, please like and subscribe to our podcast channel. Make sure that you know, make sure that I know that you like the information and content that we're giving. So until next time, everybody, thank you again for coming by the Fit in the Form podcast, and we will see you on the other side. Cheers.